Assalamualaikum and good day I be to everyone. I am Nur Tasnim from Universiti Kuala Lumpur Royal College of Medicine Perak, Malaysia, and I would like to present my research project, the synthesis of bivalent beta-carboline derivatives as potential chemotherapeutic agents, supervised by Dr. Mazlin Muhyiddin. Introducing my team members. Cancer is a large group of disease that can start in almost any organ of body. It is caused from the uncontrolled proliferation, division, and invasion of abnormal cells in organism. According to World Health Organization, cancer is the second leading cause of death globally, for estimated 9.6 million deaths, which is 1 in 6 deaths in 2018. The current cancer treatments include surgery, chemotherapy, and so on. However, the conventional chemotherapeutic agents in cancer therapy have several limitations that reduce their effectiveness. For instance, development of multi-drug resistance of tumor cells and severe toxicity to the normal cells. Hence, developing new chemotherapeutic agents that are more potent and selective with fewer side effects is an important target in modern medicinal chemistry. Therefore, many reported studies had shown great interest in beta-carboline compounds, as they have been reported to demonstrate excellent anti-cancer activities. Beta-carboline skeletons consist of a pyridine ring that fused to an indole backbone. It is the large group of natural and synthetic indole alkaloids with having planar tricyclic ring system. Beta-carboline was initially isolated from seed of plant named Peganum harmala. Beta-carboline can be classified into 3 compounds that is based on the saturation of its pyridine ring. The first compound is fully aromatic beta-carboline, which consists of unsaturated pyridine ring. The second one is the dihydrobeta-carboline, which consists of partially saturated pyridine ring. And the last one is tetrahydrobeta-carboline that consists of fully saturated pyridine ring. Overview of bivalent beta-carboline. Beta-carboline dimers consist of 2 beta-carboline nucleases directly linked by carbon chains, heteroatoms heterocyclic on their connected sites, which can consist of position 1, position 2, 3 or 9. Past literature reported that bivalent beta-carboline was expected to show more significant in vitro anti-tumor activity and more potent in vivo efficacy than the monomers. Furthermore, bivalent beta-carboline was more favorable to intercalate with DNA, which will display better anti-cancer activity than the monomers. The reported compounds of bivalent beta-carboline. In 2014, the bivalent beta-carboline B93 has shown a potent anti-cancer activity against various cancer cell lines with IC50 value range from 10.89 micromolar to 3.58 micromolar. While in 2019, 2 beta-carboline derivatives has been reported to have strong cytotoxic activities against 6 cancer cell lines as IC50 value lower than 20 micromolar. Objective of the study. This study aimed to synthesize various new bivalent beta-carboline derivatives using different lengths of dibromoalkane in 4 steps method with good to moderate yields. The methods to synthesis of bivalent beta-carboline. The method consists of 2 parts. Part 1. The synthesis of core skeleton beta-carboline through pictet spangler condensation from L-tryptophan, while Part 2 is the synthesis of bivalent beta-carboline from beta-carboline T2. Part 1. Synthesis of core skeleton beta-carboline through pictet spangler condensation from L-tryptophan. In this reaction, L-tryptophan was used as starting material that will be react with formaldehyde, producing tetrahydrobeta-carboline T1 that will be further react to form core skeleton beta-carboline T2. And the core skeleton beta-carboline T2 was in 47% yield, which is moderate yield. Part 2. The synthesis of intermediate T3 from beta-carboline T2 with different length of dibromoalkane. The reaction will use beta-carboline T2 as starting material and will react with dibromoalkane producing intermediate T3. Beta-carboline derivative for intermediate T3 were found to have significantly high yield since it will be further react to form bivalent beta-carboline T4. The synthesis of bivalent beta-carboline T4 with different length of dibromoalkane. The reaction will start with the intermediate T3 that will be react with potassium iodide and dibromoalkane. This reaction only produce moderate yield of bivalent beta-carboline T4. These are all the derivatives for the intermediate T3 and derivatives for the bivalent beta-carboline T4. In short, bivalent beta-carboline compounds are expected to elicit good anti-cancer activity with less toxicity. Moreover, beta-carboline in the form of dimers can be further develop their potential as chemotherapeutic drugs for better cancer therapy in the future. So, that's all from me. Thank you for listening.
Hi, Assalamualaikum, and I'm going to start my presentation now. Our topic is about development of a non-immersive virtual reality of a general X-ray quality control. So my name is Zarif Hazard and this is my team members. A bit of introduction. Virtual reality is like you playing games but close to reality. This could improve students' learning. That's why we use this virtual reality. Quality control is actually a test that has been done on the general X-ray or other modalities to make sure the machine works perfectly. And the Unity 3D is a platform we use to create the massive 3D scenery. So type of virtuality consists of non-immersive, full immersive, and semi-immersive, but we are focusing now only on non-immersive. It's like playing games through phones and even laptop. Our main objective is actually to create a virtual simulation of a quality control of X-ray, general X-ray for undergraduate students to improve to learn more about practices and procedures. The material we use is a Unity 3D where we create the 3D scenery, Blender where we create the 3D objects, Visual Studio Code where we insert the coding, and this is a bit preview of our game where the character is movable and it can interact with the objects, and this is the QC that we include inside the game. We use the questionnaire being adapted from Morrow et al. And Merchant et al. Consists of 5-point Likert scale. Evaluation consists of learner's interaction, perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness, and one open-ended question. Our target user are 5 final year students of PDR from UKM And the result we had is the first from the alpha to make sure the questionnaire is usable, and this is the respondent demographic of the 5 users. And this is the result of questionnaire. And here we can see that the highest descriptive value is based on the mean value. The highest mean value is the perceived usefulness with 4.77. What does it mean? Next, we focus on this discussion. It will be explained here. The learner instruction is actually how the final year student agreed that VR simulation is good in delivering the QC knowledge. Perceived ease of use is how hard to use this VR simulation, and perceived usefulness is how this virtual simulation benefit them in academic, focusing on the QC itself. So the highest descriptive value is the perceived usefulness, means that this VR is really benefit the final year students in delivering the QC knowledge. So the conclusion, final year students agreed that this VR simulation give a positive impact to them in learning. The final student agreed that VR simulation is a good learning tool. Nowadays, during the pandemic outbreak, this VR simulation could reduce the face-to-face problem that we are facing now. This VR simulation could promote the healthcare related courses, how the radiology department looks like. So, this is the reference that we use, a bit of the acknowledgement, and thank you very much. Now we will continue to show a video of our project.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day to all. I am Fahmi bin Hassan, PhD student from Faculty of Pharmacy, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. I am presenting my study entitled A Thematic Analysis of Non-Pharmacological Intervention Strategies in the Management of Diabetic Patients in Malaysia. Malaysia is one of the countries in Southeast Asia that is highly affected with diabetes. The mean HbA1c levels among Malaysians was reported to increase from 8% in 2003 to 8.66% in 2008, with only 22% achieved the recommended HbA1c target of 7% and below. Pharmacotherapy is one of the most effective treatment modalities to achieve optimal glycemic control and to prevent the development of diabetes complications. Nonetheless, the efficacy of pharmacotherapy is often limited by poor medication adherence among diabetic patients. To increase the proportion of diabetic patients with good glycemic controls and low complication rates, non-pharmacological intervention strategies that are complementary to drug treatment were also increasingly used in diabetes management. These strategies may include counseling, psychological and social interventions, patient empowerment, patient-centered training, nutritional therapy, physical therapy, and health coaching. The study aims to provide a synthesis of the themes of non-pharmacological intervention strategies reported to be provided during management of diabetic patients in Malaysia. Article search was conducted in 4 electronic databases, namely PubMed, Scopus, Web of Science, and Ovid, by using relevant subject headings and keywords. Manual search was also done on the reference list of all identified articles to obtain all possible relevant studies. The inclusion criteria for articles were reports of non-pharmacological and patient-mediated strategies in the management of diabetic patients as defined in the previous studies. The full text article were appraised independently by both authors to identify their eligibility. Qualitative data analysis software Atlas T was used for the analysis. Initial codes were generated through the familiarization of the data in the articles. Similar or related codes were then grouped into possible themes. Themes were refined, and defined by assigning them with clear definitions and names. Of these, 22 articles fulfilled the inclusion and exclusion criteria and were included in the final analysis following the PRISMA guideline. The length of intervention strategies reported in the study ranged between 3 and 18 months. The interventions include as low as 1 and up to 8 follow-up sessions. The interventions could be delivered by pharmacists, physicians, nurses, psychological therapists, or a multidisciplinary team. Most of the studies reported glycemic control as primary or secondary outcomes. In addition, the studies also measured other outcomes such as blood pressure, lipid profile, body weight, psychological measures, knowledge retention rate, self-care, food condition, and also quality of life. 6 intervention strategies were found, namely diabetes education, patient empowerment, adherence support, lifestyle adjustment, psychological intervention, and shared decision making. The majority of the studies combine different types of intervention strategies in their services. The most commonly provided intervention strategies include diabetes education modules and patient empowerment. The interventions were carried out either in the outpatient settings, community, or patient's home. The 6 themes that emerged showed the diversity and applicability of various intervention strategies in Malaysia. These themes could be combined to develop a more comprehensive module for the management of diabetic patients in Malaysia. This review is another step towards achieving a better understanding of how healthcare providers can apply different intervention strategies in the context of diabetes management. In summary, the study presents a thematic analysis of the literature of non-pharmacological interventions in the management of diabetic patients in Malaysia. 6 themes of intervention strategies were identified. Further research is needed to empirically validate these results so that a better understanding can be obtained on the themes that are most meaningful for patients and also their applicability in real-life settings. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good day. I'm Tira Syeda binti Ismail from Universiti Kuala Lumpur Institute of Medical Science Technology. I want to our recent study. Basically, we investigated the effect of a non-pharmacological therapy, the environmental enrichment on cognitive impact model that induced by unhealthy diet routine. Globally, there is an increase of the Western diet intake in daily life that has principal components of saturated fats and refined sugars. Many studies reveal that prolonged Western diet intake cause damage in brain structure called hippocampus, which lead to cognitive impairment. So, cognitive impairment is a condition in which a person experiences a decline in mental abilities such as trouble in remembering and trouble in learning new things. So, there is a growing interest in non-pharmacological approach that utilize intellectual, physical, and social activities. Previous study reported that these activities individually reduce cognitive impairment, and few other studies suggested that multimodal or combined of these interventions may be more effective. However, evidence supporting the multimodal intervention is not yet conclusive. Thus, we want to investigate the impact of this multimodal intervention in cognitive impact animal using a paradigm called environmental enrichment or EE. So, EE refers to laboratory housing procedure consisted of broad living area at least twice of the standard cage size and various stimulators that trigger cognitive, physical, and social activities. Studies showed that EE promotes neurogenesis and improves learning and memory. In general, we want to verify whether EE can mitigate high-fat sucrose diet-induced cognitive impairment in rats. Throughout the study, rats in C group that received standard diet and D group that received high-fat sucrose diet were placed in standard cages. In contrast, rats in DE group that received high-fat sucrose diet were placed in EE cages for 6 hours per day during the dark cycle. So, rats are nocturnal animals. Thus, naturally, rats are more active during the dark cycle. At the end of the study, serum BDNF, homeostasis, histophotometry analysis, and gene expression of hippocampal tissue were evaluated. BDNF is synthesized in the hippocampus but present in blood. Thus, the measurement of serum BDNF was used as indicator of hippocampal integrity. We found that rats exposed to EE had higher serum BDNF level compared to the D group. Next, we investigated the spatial memory of this rat using T-maze apparatus. T-maze evaluate the navigation memory of this rat to explore for food. As shown in the video clips, rats with good memory reluctant to return to the previous explored arm and tend to choose the opposite arm to increase the opportunity to find food, whereas rats with impaired memory have tendency to re-explore the previous arm. We found that the DE group had better spatial memory than D group. We also investigated the structure and quantity of hippocampal neuron. As you can see in the slide, control show healthy neurons arranged in order with intact cellular outlines. As for group D, show prominent damaged neurons with dark stained and shrunken cell bodies, whereas DE showed minimal damaged neuron. Finally, we used qPCR analysis to determine the expression of BDNF, NTR32, and ATF4 genes in the hippocampal tissue. These genes encoded protein that involved in the BDNF track signaling pathway, which this pathway directly involved in neuron development, express learning, and memory. Interestingly, expression of these genes was significantly upregulated in the DE group, whereas the same genes were downregulated in the D group. So, in conclusion, this finding indicated that EE exerted neuroprotection at least partly through the enhancing BDNF tract signaling pathway and inhibiting hippocampus damage and cognitive impairment. Overall, our study emphasized that the importance of social, physical, and cognitive stimulation in reducing cognitive impairment. Thus, EE can be explored as a potential non-pharmacological multimodal therapeutic intervention for cognitive impairment. So these are some of our references, and for your information, this study was funded by Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia under FRGS grant. So thank you for your time.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good day to the chairperson and all participants. I'll be presenting on my research title, Predictors of Hospital Stay Among Patients with Dengue Infection in a Teaching Hospital in Kuala Lumpur. This is the outline of my presentation. Dengue infection is one of the most important and fastest spreading mosquito-borne viral disease with high morbidity and mortality, and has become one of the leading causes of hospitalization in most Asian countries. High dengue incidence and possible complications and death has posed a huge burden on national healthcare system. Early identification of patients with dengue having risk factors of prolonged hospital stay may serve as an effective tool to combat the upsurge of disease burden. High dengue incidence lead to increase in hospital admission, which significantly impacted on increased cost of healthcare. Hospitalization leads to loss in economic productivity from sick workers taking sick leave or parents taking leave to care for their sick children. Apart from that, hospitalization may give rise to psychological impact such as stress, anxiety, and depression. Besides, prolonged hospital stay increase risk of hospital-acquired infection, and that may further cause longer hospital stay. The objective of this study was to determine length of hospital stay and predictors of prolonged hospital stay among patients with dengue infection in Hospital Chancellor Tuanku Mukhris. This study employed a cross-sectional design using retrospective data. The study population were patients diagnosed with dengue fever and admitted to Hospital Chancellor Tuanku Mukhris from January 2014 until November 2017. Patients with final diagnosis of dengue fever aged 15 years and above were selected for the study. Patients who were pregnant and had underlying cancer were excluded. A total of 513 patients were included in the analysis. Data analysis were descriptive analysis, bivariable analysis, and multivariable analysis. The result, the median age of patients was 34 years, and 23% of patients had at least one comorbidity. 9% of the patients diagnosed with severe dengue. This figure shows the distribution of the length of stay among patients who are admitted to Hospital Chancellor Tuanku Mukhris. The length of stay ranged from 1 day to 22 days, and the median was 4 days. There were 37.8% of patients had prolonged stay. In the final model of multiple logistic regression analysis, patients who presented with fever of less than 3 days were associated with almost 20 times the increase of prolonged hospital stay, and those with 4 or more warning signs was associated with 3.5 times higher odds of prolonged hospital stay. Patients diagnosed with severe dengue had 12 times higher odds of prolonged hospital stay. Apart from that, having a secondary bacterial infection was associated with over a 7-fold increase in odds of prolonged hospital stay. And lastly, acute kidney injury was also associated with prolonged hospital stay with odds ratio of 3.77. And for discussion about more than 1/3 of patients had prolonged hospital stay, quite similar with study by Khalid et al. 2014. And the study also discovered that patients who presented with fever of less than 3 days significantly associated with prolonged hospital stay, and this is in concordance with a study in Thailand that reported patients who seek treatment earlier stayed longer in the hospital. Findings also revealed the increasing number of warning signs from 2 to more than 4 associated with increased odds of prolonged hospital stay. And other significant findings were presence of warning signs, severe dengue, and acute kidney injury in agreement with other studies. So in conclusion, days of fever on admission, presence of warning signs, dengue severity, and presence of complications may predict length of hospital stay among dengue patients. Early recognition of factors identified in this study can potentially improve patients' outcomes and prevent prolonged hospital stay. These are the references, and thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, I'm Faris Haikal. Today I'll be presenting my research project entitled Development and Evaluation of Orally Disintegrating Film containing amlodipine basalate under supervision of Dr. Liu Kai Bin from University of Cyberjaya. Did you guys know the prevalence of hypertension in Malaysia was quite high with 35.5% in 2015, and amlodipine was the drugs of choice. Unfortunately, in treating patients with hypertension, especially geriatric population, we have encountered problems with non-compliance issue due to several factors such as dysphagia, fear of choking, and inconvenience dosage form. It's supported by papers saying that 7 to 13% of elderly having this kind of problems. Due to that, fast dissolving drug delivery system come into existence to help increase patient compliance and convenience to medication. This study aims to develop and evaluate ODF containing ADB with the specific objectives of determining a suitable polymer to select the optimum formulation from different types and concentration of hydrophilic polymers and to compare solvent casting method and spraying method in forming ODF. Solvent casting method and spraying method being used in this particular research started with mixing all ingredients, homogenize it, set aside, and then we cast the polymeric blend onto Petri plate. We dry it, peel it, and cut it into desired size. For spraying method, there is only one additional spraying technique. Other than that, it was just the same. The ODF form will be subjected to validation tests such as thickness test, folding endurance test, tensile strength, percent of elongation, Young modulus, disintegration, and dissolution tests. The results being discussed in three important sections, which was characterization of ODF blank formulation, selection the best formulation, and characterization of loaded ODF formulated using different methods. All blank ODF passed the thickness test, and as in general, we can see that HPMC found to be thicker as compared to CMC due to reduction of polymeric solution viscosity of CMC when exposed to temperature above 50 degrees Celsius during drying process. For folding endurance, we can see that CMC was having higher folding endurance number as compared to HPMC due to its ability to restore water content in their polymeric matrix, leading to jelly-like structure, which then increase or enhancing the flexibility and folding endurance number. For tensile strength, we can see the value of HPMC was higher than CMC due to HPMC produced thicker film. And for percentage of elongation, HPMC show low in elongation at break due to its polymeric matrix characteristic, which was strong but brittle, reflected by high tensile strength but low percentage of elongation. For young modulus, HPMC show lower elasticity. Why? Because of having low ambient temperature, where the matrix of HPMC begin to stiffen up and undergone glass transition to become glassy solid, which led to brittle matrix formed. For disintegration test, HPMC found to disintegrate faster than CMC due to its property of having additional hydroxyl group, which then leads to higher hydrophilic property. For dissolution test, ODF formulated by using CMC was actually failed the test because produced strong ionic cross-linkage when intact with dissolution solvent. HPMC 65% was selected to be the most ideal formulation due to the fact that it was having the best mechanical properties and fast disintegration test as well as high percentage of drug release in dissolution test. After statistical analysis, there was no significant difference found in both methods, but there is still small margins of difference between both methods. For example, in the thickness test, we can see that solvent casting method produced uniform film as compared to spraying method. Both methods were actually having comparable disintegration time. Spraying method found to release low percentage of drugs in 30 seconds due to the formation of entrapped air bubble in the film form, leads to insufficient content inside the film. To conclude, HPMC was better than CMC. These are all my references. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Nurul Hanisa and today I'll be presenting a study on formulation optimization of amlodipine orally disintegrating tablets. Tablets have desirable advantages as compared to other oral pharmaceutical dosage forms. One of the tablet types is orally disintegrating tablets, or ODT, that disintegrate in oral cavity within seconds without the need of water. This gives benefit to the patients who are difficult to swallow, including pediatric and also geriatric patients. To formulate the optimal ODT formulation, we must study the influence of composition on dosage form characteristics until the satisfactory system is produced. The study was conducted to formulate and evaluate ODT containing amlodipine, and the specific objectives are to investigate the effect of different types of fillers and percentages on the physical properties of the tablets, to identify the optimal ODT formulation, and also to evaluate amlodipine ODT. The first stage of the study was the formulation of blank ODT containing different types of fillers with different percentages. The fillers used were sorbolac, granulac, and also combilac, with 15, 25, and 45% concentration each of it. Hence, there were a total of 9 formulations. The formulations were produced using wet granulation method, and analysis of granules and tablet quality control tests were then conducted. After that, the most optimal ODT formulation was identified. The formulation must comply this criteria of ODT, especially disintegration time that must be less than 3 minutes. After the most optimal formulation was identified, it was then incorporated with amlodipine and was tested again. These are the excipients used in the study. The first one is powder flowability that were determined by angle of repose, Hausner ratio, and also Carr's index. All formulations possess good flow property due to the use of wet granulation method that increases the average particle and reduces the powder cohesiveness. Next, none of the tablets that deviates by more than the permitted limit of weight. However, there are still differences in the weights, may be due to the different size of distributions in the powder bags. The thickness of tablets also were all identical. For tablet hardness, it is inversely related to the particle size. Based on this graph, the hardness increased as the concentration of sorbolac increased from F1 to F3, while the increasing concentration of granulac had caused the hardness to decrease in F4 to F6. Both sorbolac and granulac are mild lactose, with particle size of sorbolac is smaller than that of granulac. The increasing concentration of combilac also had caused the increasing tablet hardness from F7 to F9 due to the presence of MCC that allows the even distribution of water. All tablets disintegrate within 180 seconds. This is due to the combination of MCC with sodium starch glycolate, which is the super disintegrating in the formulation that facilitate the disintegration process. Tablet disintegration time also have a significant correlation with the tablet hardness. Before this, we have mentioned that the hardness of the tablets containing sorbolac increased from F1 to F3. In this graph, we can see that the disintegration time also increased from F1 to F3. This applied to other formulations as well. The harder tablets have lower water penetration due to lower porosity and higher interparticular bond. Formulations that contain combilac from F7 to F9 have a lower distribution time as compared to others due to the presence of additional disintegrants, which are MCC and native cornstarch. For a friability test, all formulations have a friability below 1%, and the friability also is reversely proportional to their hardness. After all tests were conducted, the formulation 5 was chosen as the most optimal formulation because it complied to all tablet requirements and has the faster disintegration time. Then it was incorporated with amlodipine as the model drug and tested again. The addition of active ingredient into the formulation have not much affected the tablet physical properties when we compare it before and after incorporation of amlodipine. In conclusion, different phenotypes with different percentages do not have a huge impact on the average weight of the tablets and the tablet thickness. However, the tablet hardness, friability, and also disintegration time were affected by the differences in phenotypes and percentages. And lastly, the incorporation of amlodipine into the chosen formulation did not affect much the physical characteristics of orally disintegrating tablets. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, all, I am He from University of Cyberjaya. My research title is Development and Evaluation of Co-processed excipient for amlodipine orally disintegration tablet application. This is my presentation outline. Co-processed excipients are prepared by combining one excipient into particle structure of another excipient to obtain better features and tableting characteristics than a single substance or physical mixture. Advantages of co-processing are to get fast disintegration, improves compressibility, improve flow properties, and ease of production. From the literature review, angle of repose, hardness ratio, cast index, sieve analysis, variability, swelling index, and loss of drying are the methods to evaluate the co-process excipients. The ODT will evaluate by wet variation, content uniformity, thickness, hardness, variability, disintegration time, and dissolution test. The specific objectives are developing a co-processed excipient comprised of PBP, lactose, MCC, and CCS, characterize the co-processed excipient and determine the optimal formulation, develop and characterize an allodipping ODT using the co-processed excipient. This table shows the 5 formulations of co-processed excipient that I use. I use the wet granulation to make the co-processed excipient. The pictures show the formula apparatus and tester that I use to find the angle of repose, hardness ratio, cast index, wet variation, content uniformity, hardness, thickness, variability, disintegration, and dissolution tests. Now we proceed to results and discussion. Based on figure 3.1, the angle of repose increased from 29.4 to 31.9 when the percentage of MCC increases, because MCC can increase the particle size and increase the interparticle friction. Increasing percentage of MCC while reducing the flowability of the co-processed excipients, since MCC can apply wicking action to promote rapid wetting of the powder mix. This can cause the adhesion between particle agglomerates and increase the cohesion, resulting more poorer flowability. It can conclude that the lower the percentage of the MCC, the better the flowability and compressibility of the co-processed excipients, according to figure 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. According to table 3.4, none of the tablets deviating 5% and 10% of the mean weight. Table 3.5 shows the API was distributed equally in all formulation tablets. Since the wet variation shows none of the tablet over or lower the limit, it is a strong evidence to support the content was uniformly distributed. None of the tablets thickness over or lower than 5% variation. The thickness test shows another strong evidence that each tablets had a uniform content. Table 3.7 shows the hardness of 5 formulations tablets are accepted because the hardness were between the range from 4 to 10 kg for oral tablets. Figure 3.4 shows the hardness of the tablets increases when the thickness of tablet decreases. It can conclude that less load to require to crush the thick tablet because the mixtures compress less compact into the tablet. Based on table 3.8, all 5 formulations tablets show acceptable results since there were less than 1% wet loss. Figure 3.5 shows the higher the hardness of tablet, the lower the percentage of wet loss. The higher the hardness of the tablet had, the more compact of the particle inside the tablet, because took more longer time to break out the tablet into small particles. There was no difference in the rate of dissolution of drug in this study. Conclusion: in this study, formulation 4 was chosen as the best formulation because it has the excellent flowability, compressibility, and fast disintegration time. The limitations of my study are time constraint, cannot do several evaluation tests, tablet compression machine was partially automated, which took longer time, and no any indicator on the tablet machine for tablet punching strength. My recommendation for future study is changing CCS to other super disintegrants such as sodium starch glycolate and cross-povidone. After that, can compare with this study to finalize the best formulation. This is my references. Thank you for watching my presentation.
Hello, my name is Trisha from University of Cyberjaya, and today I will be presenting my research entitled Solubility Enhancement of Amlodipine Bacillate using Solvent Evaporation Method and Microemulsion Technique under the supervision of Dr. Liu Kai Bin. So, as an introduction, amlodipine bacillate is a calcium channel blocker used in the treatment of hypertension. Amlodipine bacillate is described as slightly soluble in water, and its experimental solubility was found to be 0.38 mg per milliliter, which is quite limited. Since drug solubility is an important determinant in drug liberation and absorption, the solubility profile of amlodipine bacillate may result in problems with absorption, leading to poor bioavailability. This study aims to compare the two methods used in enhancing the solubility of amlodipine bacillate, which are the solvent evaporation method and microemulsion technique, with the specific objectives of determining the solubility of amlodipine bacillate processed by the two methods, and also to compare the solubility enhancement efficiency. Moving on to the methodologies of the study. In solvent evaporation method, we started by dissolving a respective amount of polymer in chloroform and dichloromethane. The weighed amount of amlodipine was added with constant stirring until completely dissolved. The solvent was then evaporated, and the resulting residue was dried in an oven and stored overnight in a desiccator. The dried mass was then crushed and sifted. The table shows the different drug-to-polymer ratio that was used in the study. As for the microemulsion technique, the microemulsions were prepared by phase titration method using twin-20S surfactant and propylene glycol as co-surfactant. Oleic acid was used as the oil phase, and distilled water was used as the aqueous phase. In this study, different surfactant to co-surfactant ratios of 1:1 and 2:1 were also used. Then, the microemulsion formulation was optimized for evaluation. The solid dispersions prepared by solvent evaporation method were evaluated for percentage yield, drug content, solubility studies, dissolution tests, and SEM, whereas the microemulsions were evaluated for solubility studies, dissolution tests, zeta potential, and lastly, TEM. Moving on to the results and discussions of the study. All solid dispersions prepared by solvent evaporation method showed a high percentage yield and were also uniform in drug content. Based on the solubility studies and dissolution tests that were done, all solid dispersions and the optimized microemulsion had improved solubility and dissolution rate in comparison to the pure drug. The formulation SD3 that has a drug-to-polymer ratio of 1:4 showed higher solubility and dissolution rate than the other solid dispersions prepared. This could be due to the reduced crystallinity of the drug when a higher amount of polymer was used. However, the optimized microemulsion demonstrated the highest solubility enhancement out of all the formulations. The enhanced solubility and dissolution profile of solid dispersions prepared could be due to a myriad of factors, such as reduction in particle size of the drug, improved wettability, and also a reduced crystallinity of the drug. As for the microemulsion technique, the solubility was enhanced by the reduction in surface tension due to the presence of surfactant, reduced droplet size, and also improved wettability. Nevertheless, this study does have several limitations, such as several data are still ongoing due to MCO, and the laboratory does not have all the appliances and machines that are needed. Further studies on the formulation of solid dispersions and microemulsions of amlodipine bacillate needs to be done before it can be commercialized. As a conclusion, both method was found to significantly enhance the solubility of amlodipine bacillate. However, microemulsion technique produced a better solubility profile as it had enhanced the solubility of the pure amlodipine bacillate by close to 4-fold. These are my references. And with that, I thank you.